Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to make a channel banner. Now channel banners you can upload into any channel as if you would any regular image. No permissions required unless you're of course in a server that you don't own or don't have admin in. Then you might need to receive permissions from the owner or an admin to send images there. But other than that, no requirements at all to use a channel banner. Now this design is fairly unique in the sense that I don't believe I've made any banner yet that has such sharp edges. Most of them have, or maybe even all of them, have all been rounded, though actually there have been a couple with slanted edges, but this is definitely the first time I've made one like this. Now you might notice that this rules text right here does seem fairly basic with just a simple reverse gradient over the one I used on the border. Now if you want to get to something more complex and probably fits better with this style, I already have a tutorial up, this one right here, the cyberpunk themed one, where as you can see the text, or I better not hover over it, but the text is more stylized in what one might consider a cyberpunk theme, and that would definitely fit much better for this tutorial here, but it does take a while to make, so I'm going to instead link that video at the ends and in the description, so you can go ahead and watch that if you wish to stylize your text in that manner. But that really wraps it up for the intro, and so without delaying any further, let's jump right into the tutorial. Now the sizing for the template, we're going to place it at 1200 by 530. 1200 and 530. And as usual, we're going to create a new layer and delete the backgrounds. Now what is going to be unusual is normally we would come over to this rounded rectangle, draw a shape, and adjust from there. But this time around, we are going to be using the rectangle tool, and not in the sense that you might think. Instead, we're going to be drawing shapes like this, and then taking them, Ctrl J, Ctrl T, and adjusting them like so to make various shapes all the way around. Let's clear this off and start from the beginning. Now it is kind of cheating to do this, but just to save time, I'm going to be making the frame on top of the original frame I already made, because otherwise I would be here for quite a while getting the dimensions right again. So we're going to come over to our rectangle tool. Let's drag this above. We'll come over to the ends and we'll drag all the way down and across. That was a bit too wide, so we can bring that down a tad. Now I recommend you use a bright color like red so you can easily see what's going on, and we are of course going to come back to this later on and readjust everything to fit the overall color scheme we have going on everywhere else. Now I have a properties window pulled up over here so you can see all of the settings. If you don't see properties, you have to come over to window, scroll down to properties, and it will pop up in this corner right here. And from there you can either leave it, or I recommend you drag it to the side and dock it there. So we have our first rectangle. Now we'll do Ctrl J, Ctrl T, and go 1, 2, 3. Let's drag that over there. Now same thing, we'll take this, do Ctrl J, Ctrl T. This time instead we can just go to the height at the top over here, add a minus to the front, click the check mark, and then drag that down. Now you are going to notice things coming out of the sides, and that's perfectly okay. We will be adjusting that in a moment to make sure it lines up better. This one though, I will adjust manually, just so I have a bit less work in cutting things out. So that one I'll drag up so it's not poking off the edge. And same goes for that one. Now we're going to take this one right here, do Ctrl J, Ctrl T, and rotate that to make it straight. We'll place that right there. Make sure we're on our move tool, and I'm holding Alt and scrolling with my mouse wheel to go in and out. We will now move this down, holding shift while we do so, so we stay on the y-axis until it lines up perfectly. And then we can take these three right here, go ahead and click the first one, then shift click down to select all of them, right click, and rasterize layers, and then merge layers. Now we can come to our rectangular marquee tool, and I'm holding down with the left mouse button to pop up the more options. Then we can highlight over all of this, click delete, and make sure this is straight there and that is straight there. Now we can come to the bottom and delete that as well, and then go to the top and delete that too. Now we can take that corner, Control J, Control T, come over to our width, add a minus, click the check mark, go to our marquee tool, and then drag across while holding shift to keep it on the x-axis. Not sure why that one is so far off. It might have just been due to wrong positioning in my original template, as that one I did freehand without tracing on top of something else. So we can come back to this, Control T, make sure the edge is not poking out so we don't give ourselves extra work. Hold shift and drag across so you only increase the width, or is it length? Length. Otherwise, if you don't hold shift, you end up with this. As you can see, it increases proportionally, and we do not want that. So shift across, and make sure you don't go too far over, otherwise you have more work to do, because then you have to even that out. Click the check mark, and then Control J, move that up, and that is now also lines up. Then we can take all of this, right click, merge layers, and then we can go over to the following shape right here. I'm going to create a new layer, come over to our pen tool, and this is really simple. In some cases, we'll be clicking randomly with the pen tool to go over it, but here I made everything even angles, so we can click there, hold shift, and click over there. As you can see, it lined up perfectly. And come over here, shift, click, one more time, shift, click, and then shift, click, then right click, make selection, click OK, shift F5 on your keyboard, and we're going to fill this with the solid color red. Click OK, rectangular marquee tool, right click, deselect. Now, I recommend, if you're making this from scratch, to make a backup of each thing. That's the same exact thing I did over here. If we go to backups, you can see I have a backup of each and every step of the process, just so if I have to go back and edit stuff, I'm not left with everything already being merged together. But I'm not going to do that for this tutorial here because I already have a template over there ready to go. So merge layers, now right click, blending options, we're going to go into gradient overlay, and we'll be using the following colors for our gradients. 6A1189, click OK, and as for the blue, 06B3F1, click OK, and I like to have the purple on the left side, so make sure you have everything at the following settings, just like so. And as a quick note, if you have the two colors over here in your selection, then you go to basic, that selection there is going to pop up as a gradient option. So if you just put the colors in here and go to basic and there, it's just a quick step of not having to click each one of these to get the colors in place. So click that, then right click and rasterize layer style. Now we can take this, call this our base, Control G, call this the main frame, not like the mainframe in technology. Green, we'll go over to our glass, drag that in, make this clipped, call this glass, and what I did there was either you can alt click to clip it or right click and clipping mask. Now this is going to become a linear burn if I can find it. Then Control T, And this is normally not okay to do, but in this case, it is fine as you only have small visibility for it. Now we're going to grab the following, and all of these of course will be available for download as well in that same folder that has this templates. This is going to become a divide and the opacity down to 20%. Clip that on, drag it below the glass, call this the grunge, Control T, and increase the size. Now make sure we grab a lighter purple, like say that one there. Come over to the blue-green low poly file. Come over to color replacement tool, and once again I'm holding down the left mouse button to pop up more options. And you're gonna see probably the brush at this size, but if you hold Control Alt and then drag while holding the right mouse button, you can increase the size of it. So I'm gonna go to about there, and then just come over everything. I better have not heard any of you giggle out what I just said. There we go. That is now all purple. Now we can drag that in, bring it down, make sure it's below the grunge, and we will go to the settings, select pin lights, call this the low poly, and then just adjust as needed to make everything line up. Now we're going to create a new layer, and this is where we're going to put that text up top. Do Control G with the new layer. Let's call this the text. We're going to type down using the font Anime Ace, which I'll also have linked in description, the name of the group. Let's actually make this a bit smaller until it is slightly below the top line of that main frame. There we go. Make sure it is centered, bring the opacity down to about 70%. Now create a new layer, drag it below, make sure it's actually within that same text group. Go over to rounded rectangle tool, drag a cross, make sure it is white. There we go. Then right click, blending options, inner shadow, and make some adjustments as necessary. That should be okay for now. And then drop the opacity. We'll call this the base, Control T. We'll make sure that's centered first, and then make more adjustments if we need to. Alright, so that completes the frame for now, though actually won't be returning to this main frame folder, so we can go ahead and close out of that. Now create a, hold up, we don't need that anymore, delete that. So create a new layer, Control G, and we'll call this one the center. We can go ahead and get the center at least placed down. I probably won't do a text yet, but we can get the main section filled out. Now come over to your pen tool, click there, hold shift, click across, shift, and hold shift the entire time. I'm not even going to say hold shift, just make sure you're holding shift. Click, 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 all the way around, just like so. Then right click, make selection, hit OK, shift F5, color, and pick this one for now, but we'll come in a moment and add some extra stuff to it. Now let's call this the base, then go into your blending options, gradient overlay, go to basics. We'll use this for the first one, and then for the second color we will take that and go with a lighter shade. So 140 F31. Click OK, then one more time. Now let's put this at about 90 with the purplish on the top and the darker at the bottom. Adjust the scale if needed, and I'll leave that as is. Now right click, rasterize layer style, then back into blending options, go to inner shadow. That should be the perfect setting for the inner shadow. So click OK, we'll collapse that, and we'll collapse out of the center for now. Now let's create a new layer above the main frame, do Ctrl G, and this one we'll call the thin border, thin frame. Frasme, that works as well. Now right click on the eyeball, let's make it blue. And yes, I know this is cheating again, but this is going to save us time, and it still gets across the idea of how to actually make this. So let's put this at about there, because that's how it's going to be positions. Now we'll go over to layer 2 and actually make this thing. Same process as making the border, we'll grab our rectangle tool, drag across till you hit about there. Let's not use black, let's use bright red again so we can tell what's going on. Ctrl J, Ctrl T, let's make this 45 degrees and position it about there. And again, don't worry about going too far out, that's not a big deal. Ctrl J, Ctrl T, and this time around I might actually make the stuff a bit thinner, because before it felt a bit too tall. So let's put that one there, and Ctrl T, and let's bring it to about here. Then this left side over here, we're going to actually go ahead and select these two. You need to do Control click or Shift down, then merge shapes, right click, rasterize layer, Control J, Control T, come over to our width, add a negative to the front of it, click OK. Now let's drag that across. You can see it also lines up over there for the most part. Now return to this one, hold Shift as we drag a cross. Check mark there. It's actually increased by 1 pixel. There we go. Now we can take all of these, merge layers, don't need that other one there anymore. Now we'll come to our pen tool. Let's click there, hold Shift, and click there. Then we'll come all the way across, make selection, and delete that. Same thing on the other side. Let's click there, Shift click, come all the way around, make selection, and delete. Now for the final step, we'll go across the top and delete that. Let's make sure the edges here are good. That actually lined up perfectly, and so did that one. Now you might notice I made it a bit taller as well. That's just so I can bring it down a bit. To do so, I'm going to go on the Move tool. I'm going to use my arrow keys to click once, twice, maybe 3. Nope, let's keep it at twice. So we have a bit more space between this and that. Now we're going to go right click, blending options, gradient overlay. Go to the gradients, basics. As you can see, I already have my color selected. We'll be using E2A46F, and for the lighter one, E9E978. Click OK and OK once again. The angle, we want the darker on the left and the lighter on the right. This works for me, so click OK. Right click, rasterize layer style. Then we'll do Control J, Control T. Now there isn't any need to name these because we're going to merge these in just a second. Add a negative to the heights, click the check mark, and then just move this down. Now we're going to go ahead and merge these as I just mentioned, and we'll call this the frame. Now let's take a color between the two. Let's go with this one. Go over to our blue-green low poly, Control Z to get rid of the purple. Back to our replacement tool and just go over everything. Now we will, oh, missed a corner. We will drag this in, make sure it is clipped. Choose soft light and opacity at about 70%. Control T, and let's adjust this around. There we go. I'm going to actually also grab the glass here and drop that in. Let's see. That's pretty decent, though I would drop the opacity on the glass as well. And how would the grunge look? I haven't tried the grunge yet. That should be interesting. And the grunge actually doesn't look too bad, so I think I'll probably just leave that there. Now we can close out of the thin frame, close out of the main frame, create a new layer, Control G, and let's call this one the sparkles. And this will be where we have our finishing touches, of course, aside from the actual text. We're going to go over to this shape right here. Now yours is going to be red when you open it up. Change the colors, go to blending options, color overlay, and of course choose white. Now once it's white, we're going to go over to the outer glow and make that white as well. Now do Control T and adjust this down. Move it over there. Let's do Control J and get the smaller ones out the way first. So I'll put one right there, a small little one. Then I'll take this one and place one over here. Make that a little smaller as well. Actually even smaller than that. There we go, and take one more, do Control J, Control T, and let's place one over there. Now we're going to return to the original one, Control T, and adjust that down as well so it's not too large, and leave that there. I almost forgot, for the thin frames, we're going to go onto the main folder, blending options, go over to a pattern overlay. Now you aren't going to have this exact overlay, I don't think, but I'm going to link another pattern pack in the description that you can go ahead and download. And these are the settings I'm going to use for this one, though it's going to be different for you as your patterns are going to be different. Click OK. As you can see, there's a nice little pattern going on over there. Let's hide those effects. Now let's open up the center, create a new layer, go over to our text tool. And the font I'm going to be using this time is called Nexa. Nexa, bold, regular. Click the check mark. Let's adjust this to make it larger and fit a bit better. And once again, I'm going to have the video linked in both the description and at the end for the other style, which would probably fit a bit better. Now we're going to right click, blending options, gradient overlay, and we're going to use that same gradient we used for the frame, but this time we're going to reverse it. Click OK, right click, rasterize layer style, blending options, go over to stroke, and then pattern overlay. And I'll go ahead and keep what was already there. We'll click check mark on that, and now to actually save this, rectangular marquee tool, highlight over the entire thing, edit, copy merged, file, new, create, Control V, delete the backgrounds, I use the delete key, then file, export, save for web, that's one option that you have, or file, save as, and select PNG. Thank you so much for watching the tutorial. I'm going to have the one linked at the end for that fancy text style, and I hope you all have an awesome day.